It's
on
not
it. I
really an
think he
area
was
where Go ahead.
I think he was perhaps focused on like blockchains executing AI. And
Oh
I
yeah,
think
that's
that the
that's
speed at which AI needs to operate and the speed at which the blockchain can
I know.
deliver is like incredibly mismatched by orders of magnitude.
100%,
So
100%. Like,
I
you're never
think
gonna put
perhaps he's
AI on the blockchain. But you can like use the blockchain to secure AI transactions. I'm about to lose my house's Wi-Fi and switch to 5G, so I'll probably phase out here for a minute.
yeah, I think maybe his
5G.
assessment was too narrow and maybe that's what he was missing.
Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, I think I mean like I think Andre's a really smart guy, and he is right. Like even the vast beauty of the internet computer uh, couldn't house even like a simple LLM. It's just redundancy. That level of redundancy just doesn't make sense for such big operations that LLMs require.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I think from a DeFi perspective, it's like my big thing is, um, you know, TradFi is like even I mean, ignoring its disjointedness, which is a hard blocker, being, PayPal is never going to be able to read, uh, every single little bit of Stripe's, like reserves and configuration, and along with every single other banks, along with every single other financial service that they plug into in real time. And I think most importantly, it's never going to be able to, within the process of executing a transaction, either revert that transaction or react to a change in context. And I think that's really the most important. It's like why blockchain exists, is for that composability. And it's like the best Web 2 can do is like a callback, where it's like, I'm going to send this transaction out, and hopefully it executes as intended, and hopefully like I can do something with the callback. But really, it's like if you're thinking about pure failure rate, um, I think it just you can't create a financial agent using AI. Maybe in 100 years, AGI is just going to be so smart. It can like read every code base and just totally understand every little nuance, and achieve reliability that way. But then, thinking about the unit economics of, hey, let's have AGI do this like simple financial transaction. It just sucks. And how we've built Codex, it's like we can get the costs so low, of these AI agents, and the reliability so high with retrieval augmented generation, and with some of the other kind of tool sets we have, like smart contracts and assertions, requirements, etc. Um, it's just such a huge win, and it almost makes more sense than like programming a front end. Is creating like a really solid framework, um, for LLM based interaction with smart contracts. And I would say like achieving generalization is also not crazy far off. I would say for a use case like this. Um, and I mean, I
Can
think,
I
yeah, go ahead.
can I ask you to dive in a little bit to what you mean by that, achieving generalization versus what the first iteration would be?
Yeah.
Like, what does it mean to achieve generalization for the layman like myself?
Yeah. I mean, I think like, a a big kind of goal of any engineer, I would say, is to take their solution, which might be purpose built for a single use case. Like, let's say we create the perfect AI agent that can transfer tokens, or the perfect framework that allows someone to interact with Aave. Um, Take that and blow it up into, hey, this thing, without really that much extra work, can now interact with any other thing in a very predictable manner, from the context of AI. But also, like, if you look at, DBank, I think is a really good example. their push toward generalization has been, hey, we're going to use like machine learning, potentially AI, to automatically list new tokens and new smart contracts simply by listening to events as smart contracts are deployed, and as new tokens are created. And the result of that has been like a lot of errors. Like DBank sometimes lists things weirdly. Like I remember for the Ironclad token after the Superchain One launch, DBank had it listed immediately, and they even had the logo, which they would have 100% had to scrape a website for. I honestly have no idea how they did it. It was kind of awesome, but everything was incorrect. Like it was attributing it to the wrong contract. It was saying it was liquid when it wasn't liquid. So, you know, generalization comes with a lot of technical uh, blockers simply because you can't factor in every edge case. And a lot of times, like when you're first building toward a specific use case, you can't really factor in any other case at all. Um, so that's all to say, what we're using, which I think is like very, I mean, it's not unique in AI as a whole, but certainly unique as it pertains to crypto. We're using retrieval augmented generation. And I'll tell you, and some of you may remember, some of the moon demos from like a year and a half ago of us using AI to, do cool stuff with Uniswap and Aave and Yearn. The issue with that was it wasn't 100% reliable. And when you're talking about financial use cases, these things need to be 100% reliable. It's like you can have, an AI agent, you can, give it a means of spinning up a node and interacting, with code with these smart contract systems. But if it's not 100% reliable, then you just fail. So what retrieval augmented generation it's very simple. It's like you use a traditional database and you use information from that traditional database to make the output of your LLM or of whatever ML, NLP, et cetera tool you have uh, way better. So it's like instead of saying, hey, open-ended agent, go out and do this thing we're telling you to do, and by the way, you have no guardrails, you don't know how you're going to do it, just figure it out, which is incredibly hard. The AI would need to read documentation, it would need to find smart contract addresses, it would need to figure out how to spin up a wallet, it would need to do all this stuff. Instead, we're like, hey, AI, try to interpret, using all of this context we're giving you, what the user is trying to say or what the user is trying to do, and then use all this additional context to build a transaction. And what we can do is within our RAG database, we can give it like the Lego, the building blocks to actually create these transactions super effectively and with 100% reliability. So it becomes less AGI, you're going to run around and do everything all at once, and you're just going to be a genius and just, be the next, what's his name, GCR, out of the box. What it really means is, hey, we're going to give you the tools so that the platforms we support, and with RAG, like we can support a lot of platforms very quickly. Obviously, we want focus just so the support is really rich. But now it's like its job is simply to build transactions, and we can analyze them to nail down proper inputs and outputs. And so that's what Cod3x is day one, which is honestly like we're going to have the first, I think, 100% reliable agentic interface. And we kind of made up that word, and I'm hoping it sticks because I hate the word intense. But we're going to have, I think, the first 100% reliable agentic interface for DeFi. And it's going to be coupled with like so many awesome integrations and so many partners. And what it means to generalize that is essentially, I don't think it means training an LLM. We found through relentless testing that fine tuning or training your own LLM, you're not going to improve results that much. It is kind of like deceptive. Like a lot of companies waste a lot of money to train new LLMs, and none of them work that well. But where we think we can achieve decentralization is by teaching or by training or by creating like systems of LLMs, like for example, running a prompt through two smaller LLMs and using prompt injection and other tools like that will give you way better results than fine tuning a model 10 times the size, or 100 times the size, or 1,000 times the size. So what we can do is we can kind of create these small purpose-built models, multiple of them within this framework, to fill out the metadata in the RAG database, spot check things, go through the kind of building process on their own. And really it's about breaking down each big task, each big idea, each big goal into these smaller kind of sub goals and subtasks, so that you can have a smaller agent with tighter guardrails, doing things more reliably instead of having this big open-ended thing. And I mean, really, at that point, it's like, not only can you do it cheaper than using a big LLM, but really, it's like you're building selectors. You're building smart little, function selectors, or smart little, query bots. So I think really the key is keeping things small, and then of course, like you can train a big, huge model to orchestrate some of these things, or you can create a big, huge model for interpretation, so it knows which agents to recruit to get the desired outcome. So I think like thinking about these networks and thinking about AI as a whole as more of like a framework that these LLMs can plug into to achieve like more nuanced intelligence and a more nuanced understanding. I mean, it's really like, how do people get things done? They team up and they organize, and each person takes on a role, and reliability goes up because they can focus. LLMs are exactly the same way, and I think we're going to keep kind of seeing the growth of AI mirror in a lot of ways the growth of human organizational structures. And for finance, it's like, Codex can be this little finance department in your pocket, where you can have all the tools you need to outperform in the market. And maybe outperforming just means beating inflation. Maybe outperforming just means, hey, I'm gonna maybe loop up a PT position on Silo and earn 15 or 20% on my ETH. And maybe it means, hey, I'm going to maybe operate a little better with my trading automations. I'm going to be able to do algo trading, and do it in a way that doesn't require me to kind of read 1,000 textbooks. That I think is the end goal, and using AI as kind of this amalgamation of intelligence, less so than this one giant intelligent monster, I think is where we achieve the good unit economics, and we achieve the solid reliability. And then using things like RAG can just ensure everything is close to 100%. And then we take the smart contract, we take the requirements, we take the assertions, and validate that the desired outcome is being achieved on chain. And that's really where things get special. It's like, blockchain, we can look at what's happening in Aave while we're executing a transaction. We can look at the tokens that end up in our wallet. We can look at all of these different things and, react to any potential changes, and maybe operate asynchronously, and prevent transactions that might have an undesired output from going through. And that to me is like, it's almost like blockchain was made for AI when you think about it that way. It's just like for these really high value at risk use cases, it just makes AI way more sensible as a tool, using these kind of blockchain hardline requirements and rails.
Wow. Every time Justin goes on a rant, I like have something to say at the beginning, and then the next 5 minutes, I'm like, oh, I should say. You just say so much, and it's hard to it's hard to come. I'm like, okay, wait, what did I want to say again? There are a couple questions in the chat. I guess I wanted to, something that popped in my head was just like, or something I've been thinking about a lot, ever since kind of learning about Codex, I guess, or when it was first being introduced to me is the realization that I've been thinking about, or I guess, yeah, I've been thinking about UI and UX improvements kind of not in the right way, or at least before I started learning more about how AI can make things way better in terms of experience and using blockchain, like how agents can as you say, give people a ton of tools that they didn't have before. Like that now is so clear to
Yeah,
me as a huge leap in UX, but not because it's like, oh, we made like a really sick interface. We made a really cool interface that everybody can use. And obviously those are like step improvements, but having agents actually doing the thing for you is the ultimate improvement in UX. Being able to just like, you know, just ask something of some sort of bot that can carry out actions for you. That's like in terms of like a onboard the masses. UX needs to improve hundred folds. Yeah, I was totally just thinking about that in not in this context, but it makes so
yeah,
much sense. Just seeing the AI improvements over the last like couple of years, it makes so much sense.
yeah. You can really only go so far with UI. You can really only go so far with user flows and user journeys. Um,
Yeah,
and at a certain point, you need to sit down and realize finance is hard, and a lot of these things that AI is solving are hard. And the reason that AI is so amazing for UX is, it's not trying to lift you up. It's coming down to meet you where you're at. And I think that is really the important distinction. It's like, we don't need you to sit through 100 financial classes. We don't need you to sit on Investopedia for 80 weeks to figure out what the hell is going on. We only need you to understand what you want. And not you don't even need to necessarily understand it. And a lot of people, when they think about AI agents and the power of AI, they're like, um, you know, oh, here's something that I can use as a tool to better express myself and better get what I want done. But the reality is, like, you know, where there is an information asymmetry between you and the market, you lose. Where there's an information asymmetry between you and an LLM or an AI agent, um, it's a matter of like you kind of uh, giving your trust over to the AI, or you kind of allowing it to be your boss instead of vice versa. Because when you're the AI agent's boss, it's just going to be able to do what you have in your brain already. But when you can just say, hey, like, um, I want this, but I don't know how to get it. AI can kind of show you the way. And it's like, understanding where, AI fits into the human experience, I think is super duper important. And it's like, you know, imagine having someone that knows 10 times or 100 times more than you, always available to help you with anything you need. And you just need to think of like building out these frameworks for interacting with and using AI as a tool for improving user outcomes and user experiences. You just kind of need to think of it in very human terms. What when someone is sitting in their office chair wondering how the hell they're gonna beat inflation this year, um, you know, telling them to go read about money markets, or go read about indexing or buying bonds or whatever. That's not a solution for everybody. But if someone can express that anxiety, and AI can just pick that up and do the rest, that to me is like, it's not a it's a UX that was virtually inconceivable before LLMs. And it's like, as far as we could push it with user flows and user interfaces, um, this allows us to kind of come from the other end and push the content and the difficulty down to a level where it can meet people. And obviously we want to kind of win in both categories with Cod3x, and I think we will. Like we've been putting years of effort into this, and I would say like we're very blessed to be where we're at, and I really see a world where we can like solve so it will take a lot to solve this, but we at least will have the capability to solve for information asymmetry in finance, to solve for you know really retail kind of getting the bad end of the stick, just getting totally annihilated in the markets for the past 100 years, because they have a job and they can't just sit and learn about finance all day.
They can't? What do you mean? Yeah, no, that it all makes sense. Okay, I want to ask some of these questions that are popping up. Helper had a good one. Oh man, I actually saw another Ernest NFT in the. Oh yeah, Jackson's still there. Nice Ernest, sir or ma'am. So Helper was wondering, okay, a lot of people, I see a lot of questions regarding Cod3x in terms of the risks, and I'm wondering if you can talk about maybe like the differences in the risks that need to be considered when compared to something like smart contract risks, because it's not, I guess it's not really exactly analogous
Yeah.
to deploying a new contract, deploying a new app. Like it's dealing with other contracts and it's deploying agents. So like, what are the kinds of like risks that that need to be considered, and
Yeah.
how's the team thinking about this?
Yeah, I'll tell you. I was talking to Korn from Yearn about 8 to 12 months ago, and I told him, dude, AI is going to make our jobs obsolete. And the reason for saying that is because coming from the world of Reaper, and basically when we realized that we could build Cod3x, we stopped working on Reaper, because it is so expensive and it is so risky and it is so difficult and it requires so many disciplines and so much absolute hardline perfection to develop a good vault and a strategy. And obviously you can be good at it, you can learn how to do it fast, but it's like total burnout work. And Yearn understands this, Beefy understands this, Vesper, everybody who's ever worked in the yield aggregation industry understands this. And frankly, working in the kind of the Web 2 domain, and using the blockchain more for security and less so for programming all the transaction building logic and execution logic, really, it's like an order of magnitude difference in terms of the cost of security, the ease of security. Like we can build these frameworks and secure them so much easier, than in the public kind of permissionless domain. And I think really where we take things a step further, is making this distinction between security and reliability. And I think a lot of our thinking for Cod3x has shifted. I mean, obviously we're security, but now we see user safety kind of falling in the reliability domain, being how can we ensure that when a user requests something and when a user swipes their finger across Cod3x and sends the agent out to execute whatever financial directive, we need to make sure that that agent can't make mistakes. It's not about like probably not making mistakes. It's not about doing its best. It's about understanding enough nuance about the transaction being executed that margin for error can be zero. And really, that I think. So we have this agentic interface, and we couple any of these transactions we're building with an intent, and what that intent does is it creates this requirement being, all right, when the agent is done executing all of these transactions, how many assets do we expect to be in the user's wallet? Of what type? How large do we expect the user's position to be on a given platform? What do we expect the user's net worth to be after execution is finished? And the reason that I have been talking so much lately about how only blockchain can make this stuff possible is, anytime there's an error, as long as your intent is valid, and then talk about, okay, how do we validate intents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of a never-ending battle, getting that reliability up to 100%. But how do we get to the point where, like, at the end of the transaction or in the middle of the transaction, if that intent is violated, we can just revert the whole transaction. And all of this is built in to the blockchain. It's like TradFi is layer after layer after layer after layer after layer after layer of technology built on top of like Web 1.0 infrastructure. And like achieving these levels of reliability, these levels of security, achieving this type of composability is 100% going to be impossible. And I mean, sure, you can kind of like create a TradFi AI interface to kind of walk someone through the steps of performing a financial action, but you're never going to get to the point of autonomy or agency with this AI. So that's really to say, like, we lean on smart contracts more so to secure a transaction, but a lot of the building is done client side with the AI agent. So when we talk about an AI agent or an agentic interface, it's not like a little guy is going to jump onto the blockchain and start walking around to Aave and Uniswap and making deposits and shaking everybody's hand. It really is like, hey, here's a selector that we've designed to build transactions, just as you might build in an Gnosis safe, or just as you might build on Etherscan. Build them for you, and we can build bigger transactions that do more things with a greater degree of security in this method than we can with smart contracts with similar amounts of lift. Just like a 10x improvement to cost, a 10x improvement to speed, and I think just overall it makes a lot more sense for the user and for like the smart contract developer. And we may as well get to a point where, how we're composing these transactions makes its way on chain. I think we're going to be working a lot on Monad, for example. I was at their headquarters the other week, and talking to their team about, how we can achieve some of the things technically that we're trying to achieve. But there could be a point where, for example, we're composing libraries of transactions that are already on chain and that are already validated. And that should give you a decent snapshot of how we are kind of laying out the tech between Web 2 and Web 3. I would say like the vault strategy architecture is a totally broken architecture. I would say like Beefy to me is one of the better businesses because they realize like you can't constantly be developing crazy novel stuff because it just is like annihilates your bottom line. It's just so expensive to secure. And instead focusing on repeating the same kind of well understood and battle tested patterns. And we want to innovate. We want to go crazy. We want to be able to get our users from A to Z instead of A to B. And that's kind of why we're moving more toward these Web 2 AI powered transaction builders. And I think a lot of the tech we build in the coming years is going to be purely focused on improving reliability and improving the Web 2, Web 3 relationship, and also defining really well what works best in the Web 2 client-side domain and what works best on chain. So we'll be doing a lot of research and a lot of writing about that, especially once we finally finish shipping all of our kind of DeFi protocols and getting all that research out of the way. A lot of it is going to move up the stack toward the AI and toward the agentic interfaces. If that answers your question.
I think so. Yeah, damn. What was? Oh, there was another one that I wanted to ask, but I guess there was one thing that you said at the beginning where I guess what answered my question was something you mentioned at the beginning where it's like client side versus like on the smart contract side where like most of the agents work isn't like it isn't any more risky on the smart contract side because that is something that users would be dealing with individually anyways. They would just have to be doing all these tedious transactions themselves, but the interface is taking care, or sorry, the interface, the agent is taking care of the client side actions a lot more and a lot more securely. Whereas people make mistakes, and you talked
Yeah.
about securing them to be 100% accurate 100% of the time. That's more than you doing it yourself. So
Yeah.
like it's an improvement in security in that sense of the word. I mean, obviously there's probably a lot of nuance there that I'm kind of just glazing over. But yeah, if you had something to add there, please do. But there's another question I wanted to ask as well.
Yeah, I guess piggybacking on what you're saying and also answering Helper's question, where he's asking, what if an agent uses a bad contract? And this kind of goes back to the conversation, like generalization versus kind of fixed scope. And really the RAG database solves that. Like any platform that our agents are going to be interacting with are going to be in the system, and we will be very explicitly putting them in the system, and that will involve, you might have seen we're already partnered with Yearn, we're partnered with Gains Network, we're partnered with a lot of big DeFi protocols and apps, and part of that partnership is, hey, we're going to create all of the kind of RAG infrastructure to support your protocol with Cod3x. And that kind of eliminates that possibility. And obviously, as we push towards generalization, like I think, there are maybe 1,000 different ways you can try to figure out if a smart contract is a reliable one. You can look at how many transactions historically have hit the contract. You can look at user inputs and outputs. You can look at changes in reserves. There are a lot of things you can point an agent at to determine whether a smart contract is valid or not. I think really the reason we like RAG so much and the reason we like whitelisting stuff so much is that we can kind of supplement the intelligence of the agent with our own intelligence, which I think is a lot more nuanced, being like what works in DeFi, what's valuable in DeFi, and what's not. And I mean, we can build like generalized airdrop farming agents. I know a lot of people have asked us for that and asked about that. I think it's totally valid if the airdrop meta exists past the end of the year. But yeah, it's like this is a problem that we've solved by narrowing scope, and we hope to eventually solve in a more general fashion.
Yes. What was the other one? I'm frantically scrolling. The other one was to do with, I think Coop asked this question, to do with the cost and the compute that's needed, the cost and like the storage cost and the compute that's needed to like run these agents. You mentioned it is actually really cheap. I don't really understand how that could be.
Well, let me tell you,
So
my
yeah,
friend.
Please educate me.
Yeah. So this goes once again back to RAG. We think retrieval augmented generation is the key to making the unit economics make sense. Using RAG, we don't need a trillion parameter model. We don't need to use GPT-4. We can use like a 7B modeler and process these transactions and these requests really quickly and easily. And it kind of goes back to as well, like, cost reduces by orders of magnitude as you get smaller and smaller. And it's like, using these small models and creating frameworks to properly orchestrate them. That is how we keep costs very low and performance very high. I don't think like GPT-4, like I can imagine, has like good use cases for strategizing, or these huge, massive, insane models. You might ask those models how to properly orchestrate our network of AI agents, or what sort of prompts would be good to net or elicit a specific outcome with our AI agents. But ours are really firmly focused on interpretation and action. Like all we want to do is we want to figure out what the user wants, and then we want to do it with like fairly low costs and high reliability. So we lean very heavily on our data infrastructure. Like we have expansive data infrastructure, and the reason for that is because a database and having rich metadata and being able to check things and aggregate things in a typical programmatic fashion before you start to send AI agents out, so they can have that data and those tool sets to maintain reliability. That's the cost savings, and that's the reliability boost. So RAG is really the business. It's been used in machine learning for a long ass time. It's very well understood, and it makes AI make a lot more sense, at least for a practical, scalable use case.
That's what I was gonna say. I'm tapped out, guys. Anybody got any more questions? Null, I think the clip right before you asked that would answer that question. I'm also gonna have to listen to the recording, TBH, which will be up so soon. Yeah, let's see. Correlated question, but that was answered. I'm tapped out, guys. Does anyone want to get on stage and chop it up? Feel free to raise your hand, and join us. UV, do you have anything to add here? I'm just really excited. That pretty much sums up my position.
Anytime we talk about AI, I'm in just learning mode because
yeah, same.
Not my strength at all.
Yeah, I was 2 years ago. So maybe I'll get into a little context and history. When we created Moon, this was in very early 2022. Elliot, the CTO of Moon, we stole him from an AI company called Splash Music, and he was just like, I mean, he had made like viral videos with them. He was like top of his field for like voice replication and generation. Absolute beast, like principal level developer. And literally, like right before the dawn of ChatGPT, we pulled him out of AI and into crypto, which, kind of, for a year we were like, oh shit, poor Elliot. But I think we've since kind of leveled out here. And it was like at that time I was super obsessed with DeFi. I mean, I still am obsessed with DeFi, but I was like, crypto's AI sucks. Everybody should pivot to crypto. Just being kind of controversial in my head. I wasn't necessarily being too much of a stick in the mud, but I was like really pushing back, like, AI will never be reliable enough for DeFi. Like, what is the reason we would ever dabble in AI? It just doesn't make sense. And then, Elliot and the Moon team kept pushing back, and I was like, okay, I'll try to get smarter. So like I read probably like 10 or 15 like papers on archive about AI, just trying to understand the problems with AI that people were thinking about, trying to better understand LLMs, trying to understand like how they work, why they're important, what their applications are. And we kind of came out of that being like, okay, we started building. I forget what we called them. We called them like assertion driven interfaces or something like that. And this was before they invented the word intense. But basically, we're like, okay, if you have a pattern wherein you're routing a transaction that is being built by AI through a smart contract, as long as you can validate with an assertion or a requirement after the main body of the transaction is executed within the same function, you can achieve 100% reliability. And then we were like, okay, great. Maybe we become an AI company. We already have all the wallet infrastructure. We already have a lot of the data infrastructure. We're like totally built to be market leaders here. And that was maybe early 2023, early to mid 2023. Well, geez, probably early 2023 now, because our first demo was in mid 2023. So at that point, we were like, okay, eventually we people started calling them intense, and we were like, okay, I guess we're building intense, and we started doing research. Okay, what imperative versus declarative intense? What makes sense right now? What doesn't? And we quickly realized, like, okay, intents are just limit orders, like a funny scale, and maybe just one piece of the puzzle for these agentic interfaces, which we now call them. And the funny thing is, like, not only Elliot, but also a staff engineer on Moon, Munchies, which I'm sure you guys have seen around. He before he joined us was super into AI, and the second GPT-3 dropped, he was building like AI tooling and crazy stuff. So we kind of ended up accidentally with like a really like tight killer AI crew. And we had also been forcing them to do blockchain stuff for a year and a half. And that's how we kind of ended up in this situation. And I'll tell you, like, once we started shipping those early demos with Moon, like if you remember Moon GPT, we didn't really market this stuff because it was just like, why market a product that isn't like 100% reliable? But like we had the only crypto app in the GPT store, and we just realized, dude, like the vault strategy architecture sucks. It doesn't work. It makes us hate our lives. Every engineer hates it. Users don't really like it. This Sonna thing was like the last straw. I was like, dude, we're not aggregating yield anymore unless it's our own products. It's just nonsensical. And we were telling Yearn, we were telling Beefy, we were telling everybody, dude, we're going to replace vaults forever with what is now Codex, what was then just like our Moon GPT thing. But yeah, we're kind of there. I feel like, or very close. Our car is making very funny noises. I hope we did not pop a tire. That would be very depressing. But yeah, sorry. There's a little context about how Codex came to be. So we kind of lucked our way into being probably first to market with an actual good AI-based DeFi interface or blockchain interface generally.
Oh, the helper stole my joke. Damn it. You bastard. Is Codex fixed tires? That's what I was gonna say, but I was beaten to the punch.
Yeah. I think and to comment on what Thomas was saying, it's like well, Moon is freaking awesome. Moon is crazy. Like Moon does so much amazing stuff. But we realized only recently, I was talking to Tom Shaughnessy, the founder of Delphi, about Codex, and I bring up Moon, and after trying to raise money for Moon for about a year, he just offhand says, "Oh yeah, middleware is uninvestable." And after talking to maybe 30 investors that had not mentioned that even once, I was like, "Oh Jesus!" And the conversations for Codex are like so easy. And what we'll probably see is like Moon conceptually kind of absorbing Codex or vice versa, just treating it as like, hey, we're vertically integrated. Like all this infrastructure is absolutely vital, but as a service, it makes less sense than kind of underpinning an application. So Codex is just kind of eating up a lot of the business. I think, just talking to investors, it's way more desirable in terms of positioning. It's very defensible against AI. It's very defensible against centralized finance, or TradFi and centralized crypto finance. So it's just like, it's honestly just a good place to be in, and I'm excited. Like once people see Codex, we're probably going to get a lot of developers just wanting to build with Moon. We're even thinking about open sourcing it, but it is just like insane infrastructure, and it brought us here, which is super duper exciting. And this isn't like, this is one of two like totally crazy groundbreaking things we're building with Moon. The other one is a secret and is not finance related at all. But I'm excited to share a lot more with you guys.
Hell yeah. We're approaching the hour mark. Beavis, you've been talking a lot. Appreciate it. I hope your tire's not blown. But yeah. Any more questions? I'm really enjoying all the memes in the chat. Yeah,
I mean,
guys.
dude, like there's maybe less than 100 people in the world that understand like the codex migration right now. It's like how
Hell
the
yeah.
oath and grain to codex thing will work, and it's like it's a lot of people think we're abandoning oath and grain to make codex, when it's like kind of. And sometimes I sit down and I try to be discreet. Like I don't think my fiance will ever let me buy any more oath or grain. Um, but sometimes I sit down and I just think like this is the best alpha in the whole industry. Like I get out of these conversations with investors and whatnot, and it's like, dude, how is this so freaking easy? Like everybody is excited about AI and crypto, and I think like a lot of investors kind of um, wanted to, like, we're getting a lot when Tao was popping off, and I think there was a lot of noise and a lot of misinformation, and a lot of people were kind of developing poison theses about how crypto and AI would interact. And I think federated learning is really dope, but really like the true, where I see AI and crypto developing true killer applications is with these kind of like means of tying together Web 2 and Web 3, and with these means of creating insane financial applications. It's like what Tether has done for payments, I want Codex to do for finance. And maybe like you can maybe argue that Coinbase or whatever is doing that, but CeFi has the same problems that TradFi does. They just like are 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Um, and I think like we can really give DeFi the distribution it needs, and it truly, like, it's the best tech. Period. I think DeFi is so freaking awesome. Everybody that we onboard from fintech thinks DeFi is so freaking awesome. I think everybody in the audience thinks DeFi is freaking awesome, and it's really like there's a distribution problem, and we solve that out of the box.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the first thing you said is very right, I think. Where like, you know, it's tough to, like, everybody in the audience, or at least 90% of the people in the audience have been through a huge journey of following our development, and the development of this firm, and it's like, um, you know, when it's hard to even sort of like like explain codex to someone who isn't thinking about something that's like this, that's even possible, or like when it's an application that's kind of the first of its kind. um it's 10 times harder to you know, after that point, then they have to dive into the entire history of Oath and Grain. So it's pretty like, it's pretty challenging because I see a lot of people asking, you know, like, oh, like, you know, um, we know the migration's coming up. Like, you know, why is what's with the market cap of Oath and Grain? To put it completely bluntly, I think everybody who's been here for the last like 2 years, kind of misses the fact that of how much you have to wade through to be able to like have all this context. And it's, I mean, it's a luxury to have this context, kind of known, and it's a complete advantage, I think. You know, I guess I should give the obligatory not financial advice, but like people coming in, and just starting to now learn about Codex, they still they still have to go through, you know, like governance forums, and I'm sure when we get as we arrive closer to the launch, like, you know, more of this will be marketed, but like, you know, having knowing exactly that Codex and or that Oath and Grain are actually going to be migrated over to Codex, it's, I mean, it's not a purposefully kept secret at all, but it's just really hard information to find, to be honest. So I don't think that was purposeful, in any sense, but it's just how things have like shaken out over the last 2 years. Um, and I don't know. I feel really lucky to be sort of, to have like joined this mission, and to be now on the precipice of something really really exciting. So yeah, I hope I was able to verbalize that, as I wanted to.
You're going to
Yeah.
jail. Uh, yeah. I
um,
mean, I think maybe like, you know, I think in my head, it's like, I don't want to have to explain our history to someone who just wants to come in and enjoy this cool app that we're making, you know.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
but it's like, it's almost like the lore, you know.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
oh, you know, we've broken world records. We've, you know, I mean, even just like thinking about, you know, shipping Radiant V2, doing Superfest, you know, being, we're kind of like, we're kind of like, the redheaded stepchild of the DeFi industry. I feel like, having been on Phantom, and especially trying to migrate away, it's like, yeah, it's not easy, and I see a world in as little as, you know, a year from now, where people are just excited to onboard and use Codex, and, you know, and when they get here, a lot of times you join a project that's promising big and exciting things, and you lift the curtain up, and it's like, you know, very kind of flimsy and sparse under the surface. Um, but, you know, I'm excited to see new users being onboarded who look under that curtain and realize there's just this, you know, endless kind of pool of knowledge and information and history, to explore, and
yeah.
controversy and excitement and pain. Um, and yeah, I think, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I know everybody who's been with us a long time has become very familiar with the pain, but, you know, I really believe that, uh, you know, we have finally found our track, like with chapters. we have a way where we can kind of expand our reach sustainably, where we don't need to, have infinite money to sustain kind of the growth and the core business. And then with Cod3x, where we have this, beautiful, far-reaching, forward-thinking sort of application that ties it all together. I just think we're kind of where we were meant to be right now, and it's taken a lot of learning and reflecting and a lot of thinking really hard about what we suck at and what we're good at. And yeah, I think obviously we'll keep talking about Cod3x and all these club Cod3x's, and we'll keep kind of spreading the information and getting everything out there. There is a lot, and I'm excited to I guess bring everybody on the journey. And I know I wax poetic at the end of all of these things, but I think we're in for a pretty exciting 6 to 12 months. And it's funny, early on we used to talk about like 2 to 3 months, and now we're just getting older and stretching things out. And it is what it is. Everybody in here is a beast, and I love that you've kind of joined us on this journey here.
Yeah, dude, we're not the redheaded stepchild. You know what we are? We're and maybe enough people have seen this movie, but if anyone's seen The Usual Suspects, we're like Kevin Spacey, you know? I hope that reference gets caught by some people. I know he was like kind of the villain, but I feel like that's a pretty good analogy because he's just like in the background the whole time, and then he just ends up being the mastermind behind everything. But anyways, yeah. So yeah, I guess we can kind of wrap this up.
The legendary Charles Ramplap is on us.
Oh god. I do want to pose the most annoying question ever. Maybe we could briefly touch on some development updates. And I saw a question earlier about having a functional app and all this kind of stuff. So maybe some just like small development updates that people could give. I know Yuvi's been across a lot of the just general like engineering progress. So if there's anything we can mention there, if not, then it is what it is.
I could probably speak to that. Like basically right now, all we're working on is a front end. Like a lot of I mean, we're working as well on kind of the RAG infrastructure and the AI framework, but the biggest lift is the front end because we're putting a lot of infrastructure into it. Basically everything Moon has to offer, every stride we've made infrastructure wise with the DeFi apps, and we're pretty far along. I think we'll probably onboard our first alpha testers this month. Hopefully everyone in here. And then in terms of like being production ready, we're pretty lucky in that there aren't like many smart contracts, and any smart contracts that are involved are fairly small. But we would still want to get basically the whole app and everything audited before we enter a more open beta. So yeah, I mean, like all of the data visualization and stuff as well should hopefully be in a serviceable, enjoyable state by the end of the month. In terms of like being fully ready with an open beta and beyond, I would put that more in like the Q4 territory. But I think you can all get your hands on it quite soon. So look forward to that, hopefully, and yeah, just get ready, I suppose. But yeah, it like 90, like truly, and I'm not talking 90 in layman's terms where the last 10% takes 10 times longer than the first 90. But I would say like we're 95% done and just have to get the front end whipped up into a serviceable state. And then once we're 100% done being, hey, we're in beta, we've got to get to 200% so we can have the most beautiful app ever. But yeah, like live app is not so far off.
Hey, Samson.
Hello. I also wanted to come up and let everyone know that if you haven't visited Aurelius yet, you should come and get into the top 888 spots to ensure that you get a piece of the action. Yeah, getting
Wow.
pretty explicit.
Yeah.
Chill. Yeah, we're
Oh,
Oh my! Can you hear
your,
me
your
okay?
audio's low. What he's saying is start accumulating salt if you haven't already. If you can get into the top 888 spots on Aurelius, ironclad strategy. You should maybe do that.
yeah, using the lucky Chinese numbers so we can start attracting a Southeast Asian audience.
That's our
Very cool.
no strategy
cool.
for going global.
What was the minute you started wrapping this up, Charles, by the way?
I haven't officially started wrapping it up. Okay, so
Okay,
wrapping it
okay.
up now.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining. Thanks for another talk. And peace, love, and harmony. Okay. Yeah. Appreciate you all being here for another week. See you in a couple of weeks. Join all the chapter discords for chapter office hours events. Ironclad, LGE happening in 2 weeks. AU token coming very soon. And yeah, enjoy your weekend all. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Charles. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Yeah.